All right, this is going to be a walkthrough of the key parts of our code. Um, just to give a little demonstration that our code actually does fully work and was written by us. So please don't share my API key anywhere. Don't want to get charged for that. So as you can see here, I'm actually at my apartment right now, hence why our Wi-Fi network name is changed to point B. This is my unique specific API key. We're going to go ahead and down here to these two Boolean values, which are the two things that we implemented. The first one is a Boolean imperial, which basically just toggles whether or not the API should be pulling from the imperial system or from the metric system. And then again, very similar concept for this other Boolean, screen1, just another Boolean flag that kind of just marks whether or not the embedded system should be rendering in the first screen, which has the weather display, or if it's going to be doing the zip code screen to change the zip code and pull from a different area code. The next thing you'll see here is a bunch of different numeric values that we instantiated to kind of help us, some with the drawing process. Pretty much this entire block here are just static integers that are going to help us with the drawing just of all of the blocks and the triangles and the rectangles and the numbers and all that sort of stuff, so that we didn't have to hard code anything. We kind of just put it in up here, and then we kind of just pulled from these variables when we're drawing all the graphics. One of the last little things here is the int zip code, which is basically just a 5-length array that just holds the zip code. So we're going to go ahead and go down here into our setup. As you can see, a lot of this code is still left over from the code given to us, like all of the connecting to the Wi-Fi fun stuff and whatnot. The one thing that I had to do, or I guess the two lines that I had to do to get the time client working properly is timeclient.begin, which again was being initiated up here, code that was given to us, and doing a timeclient.setTimeOffset. This is because we're on the West Coast. I know that even if it's pulling the zip code weather information from like Washington, D.C., that it's still showing the timestamp of where you are currently. And since we are on the West Coast, we changed that to go back by about 4 hours because the NTP time client generic setting was set to be about 4 hours ahead. So here we can just see a helper method that kind of helps us reset the zip code screen. This is basically being called every single time that the user hits a button on that screen, and it has to refresh and kind of draw in again. So as you can see here, this is kind of just drawing those top set of rectangles and triangles for the up buttons, and then the same for the down buttons. And then here for the enter button there at the bottom. So moving down into the loop information, as you can see, we have if button 5 or if m5.button A was pressed, then we're just going to flip the imperial system. Funny enough, this actually does work when you're on the zip code screen too, which is kind of a feature, not a bug, it's a feature. But we thought that was kind of funny. And then m5.button C was pressed is going to flip the two screens back and forth. So again, the user could press the enter button, or they can press button C. Either one of those will actually flip-flop, but only the enter button is actually going to reset the zip code. So then if we go into here, we'll say if not screen 1, right, which basically means that we're on the zip code screen. And what this is going to do is it's going to go through and get if m5.touch.is pressed. This is basically going to say if the user at any point presses on any part of the screen, then it'll get the coordinates of that point. And then it'll go through, and this, by the way, this is just a little debug line that basically just helps us know whether or not the touch method got a weird value. But what this is going to do is this is going to basically say, okay, well, if this is in the upper row of data, then we're going to get the X value and increment the corresponding zip code digit. Again, down here, this is going to do the exact opposite. If it's one of the lower buttons, then we're going to get the corresponding X value coordinate and decrement that corresponding zip code integer. Now, the enter button is actually super easy. The enter button just simply flips the screens. So you could do that again by also pressing button C, but we just put in another enter button as well if you'd want. to press that instead. Now here what's going on is basically just a little flip-flop that if the zip code integer digit goes above 9 or below 0, it'll basically just wrap around. This is going to be our code that draws each of the digits in the zip code based off of the array that's in our system. Now moving down here, this is all pulling from the actual main screen. So this is going to be the weather display screen. So as you can see here, a lot of this code was already pre-given to us. But the one thing that I wanted to say is that right here at the very top of this, we have a few little differences. One of those is that it's pulling with the zip code API instead of the regular just city name one. And so what this is doing here is this is just translating that array into a string and then passing that in and letting it work that way. And then this is just a basic ternary statement that's basically just saying the server URL to call with that specific string whether or not it's set to Imperial. Now moving down to some of our other code here. This is simply just giving us the temperature for debugging purposes on the console on your computer in Fahrenheit. This really has nothing to do with our code. So we're going to move down here. I did change some of the coloring to make the screen a little bit prettier. As you probably already saw, like the main now temperature is in green now. And some of the other text colors have changed a little bit as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here, and you'll see that this is our next big kind of change that we had. There's a little bit of formatting differential here, but the main thing is that we're basically saying if it's Imperial, then we're going to print with the Fahrenheit strings to go along with that, and if it's not, then it's the Celsius strings. This is going to be some code that works on the NTP time client. So what this is doing is this is basically just pulling from the time client the hours and the minutes and the seconds of current, and then it's formatting those things properly and then displaying them to the screen, which is right here. And then finally here, this last little bit of code that's working on our main weather screen is just the code that we rewrote to display the city name, but to do it in a way that's a little bit better. So what we've done here is we've basically just taken a maximum print size of 8, and we're basically, depending on the length of the name, subtracting a certain number from that. And so for Chino, mind you, that's only 5 letters. So this is basically saying 5 divided by 20, which is very small, times 10, which is like nothing if you casted it to an int, text size of 8, that kind of thing. And then it's basically just setting the text size to that integer and then printing out the name of the city. Yeah, that's all of our code that we implemented for this project. We hope that this makes sense. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with this project. We hope that you enjoy looking at our project.